Out on a dusty trail, every rider's got a memory. Maybe it was your first kickstart on a cold morning, that puff of blue smoke curling into the sunrise. Maybe it was the thump of a Honda single echoing through the woods, steady, honest, alive. For decades, those red tanks carried America's heartbeat across desert roads, logging trails, and backyard dirt tracks. They weren't flashy, they weren't fragile, they just worked, every time. This is a ride through 10 machines that defined what Honda toughness really meant. Simple, reliable, built for people who'd rather ride than polish chrome. So, grab your gloves, tighten your strap, and let's remember the red legends that never died. 1973 to 1978, Honda XR75. For a lot of American kids in the 1970s, the XR75 was the doorway. This was the first time a young rider could swing a leg over something that felt like a real dirt bike. Not a lawnmower engine welded to a rattly frame, but an honest little Honda built to go off-road. It ran a 72cc SOHC 4-stroke, air-cooled, making about 6.5 horsepower at roughly 9,000 RPM. 4-speed gearbox, around 145 pounds. And you could keep it alive in the garage with Dad's basic socket set and a shop rag. On the trail, it felt light, predictable, and clean. The motor didn't bark and scream like the wild two-strokes. It snapped, it popped, it answered. And for parents, that mattered. Fast enough to make a kid smile, not fast enough to put that kid in the hospital. The XR75 did more than sell motorcycles. It built loyalty. First ride in the woods with your older brother, your uncle, your father. First tip over. First bruise you were proud of. It created the belief: Honda is safe. Honda is tough. Honda can be trusted. Early 73 bikes, especially clean originals, are hunted today in the $5,000 to $7,000 range, because nothing brings back 1970s America faster than that little red tank. This is where the love story with Honda really started. 1980 to 2002, Honda XR200R. As those kids from the XR75 years grew up, Honda already had their next step waiting, the XR200R. It wasn't a toy anymore, it was a real motorcycle, for people who wanted to ride the trails seriously without breaking bones or budgets. A perfect bridge between the mini bikes of their youth and the full-size desert thumpers roaring out west. Under its red tank sat a 195 cubic centimeter air-cooled 4-stroke, producing around 17 horsepower through a 5-speed gearbox. Starting in 1982, Honda's ProLink rear suspension made it smoother and more confident on rough ground. The seat height was just right, the clutch was light, and the whole bike felt slim and friendly, easy to pick up, easy to trust. On the trail, it was forgiving, but never dull. You could crawl over rocks, climb hills, and drift through loose dirt without feeling like the machine was trying to kill you. That's why so many father and son pairs shared the same XR200R for years. It taught the basics: stand on the pegs, shift your weight, read the land. And it earned love for being honest, simple, and loyal. Well-kept mid-80s examples still fetch $2,000 to $3,500. Small money for a machine that turned ordinary riders into lifelong trail believers. 1979 to 2004, Honda XR250R. By the time the XR200R had taught America how to ride, Honda raised the bar again with a bike that would come to define weekend trail riding for nearly 2 decades, the XR250R. In the 1980s and 90s, when someone said, "Let's hit the trails this weekend," this was the bike most folks pictured in their mind. Its 249 cubic centimeters RFVC 4-stroke engine made around 28 horsepower at 8,000 revolutions per minute, breathing through a 6-speed gearbox. At about 240 pounds dry, it hit that sweet spot. Light enough to feel nimble, stout enough to feel planted. The suspension could take a pounding from rocks, roots, and ruts, yet it didn't demand constant wrenching. On the trail, the XR250R felt balanced and natural. Tight single track, switchbacks, or gravel climbs. It handled them all without complaint. You just poured gas in and went. For riders who wanted a serious machine without the muscle strain of a big XR600R, this was perfection. It felt less like equipment and more like a companion. Owners rarely sold theirs, they just kept riding. Clean late production, Japanese-built models now bring $3,000 to $5,000 because the Trail King earned its crown the hard way by never leaving its rider stranded. 1996 to 2004, Honda XR400R. When trail riders began craving something with a little more punch than the 250, but less brute force than the 600, Honda answered with what many still call the perfect middle ground, the XR400R. It marked the peak of Honda's 1990s philosophy: simple is strong. No sensors, no electronics, no black boxes, just raw metal and skill. Its 397 cubic centimeters RFVC 4-stroke put out roughly 34 horsepower at 6,500 revolutions per minute through a 5-speed gearbox. At about 257 pounds dry, it was sturdy but manageable. The air-cooled motor thumped out deep torque from idle, climbing rocks or roots with just a feather of clutch and a twist of throttle. Kickstart only, because back then, you earned the ride. Compared to the XR250R, it felt more mature, solid, deliberate, a little heavier in your hands. But it never tried to overpower you like the XR600R. Trail riders, amateur enduro racers, and weekend desert runners all found their rhythm with it. And the loyalty stuck. Clean examples still trade for $3,500 to $6,000, and Baja-prepped builds rarely ever leave their owners. The XR400R isn't a collectible for the shelf. It's a forever bike, the kind you keep because nothing ever truly replaces it. 1985 to 2000, Honda XR600R. If the XR400R was Honda's thinking man's trail bike, the XR600R was its muscle, a machine built for riders who measured distance not in miles, but in survival stories. This was the bike that ruled Baja, the iron-hearted thumper that proved endurance mattered more than lap times. Its 591 cubic centimeters air-cooled 4-stroke single pushed about 46 horsepower through a 5-speed box, and at roughly 288 pounds dry, it carried real heft. The steel frame was stiff, built to stay straight at triple-digit speeds across sand, rock, and washboard desert trails. Riding it demanded respect. The big single kicked back hard if you got lazy with the starter, and when hot, it reminded you who was boss. But once it fired, it became unstoppable, the kind of bike that would always, always bring you home. Every XR600R rider seems to tell the same story. It's heavy, it's stubborn, but if you treat it right, it never quits. That toughness made it an icon of 1980s and 90s off-road America, the blue-collar warrior loaded into the back of a pickup, heading for the dunes at dawn. Today, restored late-year models fetch $4,000 to $7,000. The price of a legend? Cheap. For a bike that taught a whole generation what real dependability felt like. 2000 to 2007, Honda XR650R. By the dawn of the new millennium, Honda wasn't content to rest on the XR600R's glory. They wanted faster, tougher. A machine not just for riders, but for racers. And thus, the XR650R was born. It wasn't a gentle trail thumper anymore. It was a full-blown desert weapon built to dominate the Baja 1000 at speeds the old 600 could only dream of. Its 649 cubic centimeters liquid-cooled 4-stroke single, about 61 horsepower when uncorked, sat inside a lightweight aluminum frame. At 277 pounds dry, it felt shockingly agile for its size. Open the throttle, and it didn't climb or crawl, it launched. The XR650R carved across endless desert flats with unnerving stability, eating up whoops and rocks like they weren't even there. For everyday riders, it offered a taste of what factory Baja racers felt, that raw, unstoppable momentum. In skilled hands, dirt roads turned into highways and dunes into racetracks. Today, clean, unmodified examples are almost mythic. Most have been built up for rally or long-range desert duty. Those that remain stock fetch $6,000 to $10,000, and their owners speak of them with near religious devotion. Because among off-roaders, the XR650R isn't just a bike. It's a brotherhood. If you know, you know. 1993 to present, Honda XR650L. While the XR650R was tearing through deserts at race speed, its sibling, the XR650L, quietly built an entirely different kind of legend. It wasn't chasing trophies, it was chasing sunsets. Introduced in 1993, it became Honda's unkillable dual sport, street legal, trail ready, and stubbornly unchanged for over 30 years. Powered by a 644 cubic centimeter air-cooled four-stroke, putting out around 40 horsepower, the XR650L used a 5-speed gearbox and electric start, a welcome luxury for tired legs. The tall suspension, rigid steel frame, and generous ground clearance made it ready for rough back roads or long-haul adventure rides. Strap on a duffel, fill the tank, and it'll carry you anywhere and back. Owners love it not for flash, but for faith. You can ride it to the trail, beat on it all day, fix it with a handful of tools, and ride it home again. It inspired a whole ride anywhere, fix anywhere culture long before the word adventure bike ever hit a catalog. Clean examples from the 90s still fetch $3,500 to $5,500, a small price for a living relic. It's not pretty, it's not new, but it's still here, thumping along, loyal as ever. And that's why riders call it a bike for life. 1973 to 2007, Honda CR250R. While the XR line ruled the trails and deserts, Honda's wilder side lived on the motocross track, and its name was CR250R. Nicknamed the Red Rocket, it became the symbol of Honda speed, the bike every young racer in America dreamed of twisting wide open. From local dirt circuits to the AMA Nationals, the CR250R was the heartbeat of two-stroke glory. Its 249 cubic centimeters liquid-cooled two-stroke engine screamed out roughly 48 horsepower in later models, pushing a featherweight 213-pound frame. Throttle response was instant, like flipping a light switch that fired you straight into the next corner. Fast, raw, and completely unforgiving. This wasn't a bike for a casual Sunday spin. It was a weapon built to be mastered. Every twist of the grip carried both thrill and fear, the kind of rush that made riders addicted for life. It defined an era when motocross was loud, muddy, and brutally honest, long before marketing polish took over. In the 1990s, its red body filled magazines, bedroom posters, and grainy VHS race tapes. Today, clean 2001 to 2004 models fetch $6,000 to $8,000, while the first 1973 version can exceed $10,000. Because for an entire generation, the CR250R was Honda, fast, fearless, and forever young. 1984 to 2001, Honda CR500R. If the CR250R was pure adrenaline, the CR500R was something else entirely. Fear, respect, and awe packed into 491 cubic centimeters of two-stroke fury. This was the last and loudest echo of motocross's no fear, full throttle, hang on era. Nothing before or since has delivered power so raw, so immediate, and so brutally unfiltered. Its 491 cubic centimeters liquid-cooled two-stroke engine produced around 63 horsepower, backed by a 5-speed transmission and a dry weight of just about 220 pounds. It was absurdly overpowered. Twist the throttle an inch too far, and the front wheel would skyrocket. Honda engineers kept updating frames and suspension through the years, but the truth was simple. The engine was always one step ahead of control. Riding a CR500R wasn't about fun, it was about survival, and those who survived became storytellers. Every scar, every near loop-out became part of the legend. Even today, the CR500R represents the old-school American ideal. Brute strength, no excuses, and full courage. It still stars in garage builds, YouTube tributes, and desert runs decades after its demise. Clean originals sell for $8,000 to $12,000. Immaculate restorations exceed $15,000. You don't just own a CR500R, you earn it. And that's why this beast remains sacred in the Church of Honda. 2005 to present, Honda CRF450X. By the mid-2000s, the old kickstart thumpers had faded into history, and fuel injection, sensors, and digital dashboards were taking over. But Honda wasn't ready to let go of its roots just yet. The CRF450X became the bridge between the mechanical past and the electronic present, one of the few modern four-strokes still built to go, not just to look. Its 449 cubic centimeters liquid-cooled Unicam engine makes around 43 horsepower, paired with a wide-ratio 5-speed gearbox and electric start. Weighing roughly 260 to 270 pounds dry, it was tuned for real off-road miles, not track laps. The power was strong but usable, sitting perfectly between the wild CR500R and the old-school XR600R. On the trail, it felt trustworthy, balanced, and quietly powerful. You could take it into Baja, through an enduro loop, or across 1,000 miles of backcountry and know it would get you home. That's why riders say it kept Honda's soul alive. Even in an age of ECUs and sensors, the CRF450X still thumps with that same heartbeat. Simple, strong, dependable. Early 2005 to 2008 models remain highly valued at $5,000 to $7,000, while genuine Baja race bikes command far more. When people ask if modern bikes still have soul, the CRF450X answers simply, yes, always. From the tiny XR75 that taught America's kids to dream, to the mighty CRF450X still carving through the desert today, Honda's red line runs straight through 5 decades of dirt, dust, and determination. These bikes weren't about glamour or gadgets. They were about trust. About a machine that started when you asked it to and brought you home when the day was done. Some were gentle teachers, others wild beasts. But all of them carried the same heartbeat, that steady, honest thump that every rider still remembers. Because in the end, it's not about horsepower or chrome. It's about the bond between rider and machine. Which Honda off-road legend wrote your story? Like if you still remember that red tank in your garage. Subscribe. The next ride's just ahead.